I was 7 years old when I first met Maria. I remember that day so clearly, even though it was 23 years ago. I was sitting on a wooden chair in the cold waiting room of the social services office, swinging my legs back and forth because they didn't reach the floor. My small backpack held everything I owned in the world: 3 t-shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, some underwear, and a torn teddy bear named Bruno. The social worker, Mrs. Henderson, had kind eyes but a tired voice. She kept telling me everything would be okay, that I would find a good home soon, but I had heard those words before. This was my fourth foster placement in 2 years. The first family returned me after 3 weeks because I wet the bed. The second family said I was too quiet, too withdrawn. The third family, well, they just decided they weren't ready for a child after all. When Maria walked into that room, everything changed. She wasn't what I expected. Most people who came to look at foster children were couples, usually young and energetic, talking loudly about how much love they had to give. Maria was alone. She was in her 40s, with gentle brown eyes and graying hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore a blue sweater that looked soft and comfortable, not fancy or new. She sat down in the chair next to mine and didn't say anything at first. She just smiled at me, a real smile that reached her eyes. Then she noticed Bruno, my teddy bear, peeking out of my backpack. "He looks like he's been on many adventures," she said softly. "His name is Bruno," I whispered. "He's been with me since I was little." "Bruno is a good name for a bear," Maria said, "strong and brave." That was our first conversation. She didn't ask me about my grades or my behavior or whether I had any problems. She just talked to me about Bruno. Mrs. Henderson explained my situation to Maria. My mother had died in a car accident when I was 5, and my father, well, he had never been part of my life. There were no relatives who could take me in. I was what they called a ward of the state, which just meant I belonged to nobody. Maria listened quietly, nodding sometimes, but mostly she just watched me. When Mrs. Henderson finished talking, Maria asked if she could speak with me alone. "Emma," she said, and I loved how she said my name, like it was important. "I live in a small house about 30 minutes from here. I have a garden where I grow tomatoes and flowers. I have a cat named Whiskers who is very lazy and sleeps most of the day. I work at the library downtown, helping people find books and stories." She paused and looked directly at me. "I've been thinking about having someone to share my home with, someone who might like to help me in the garden and maybe read some of those library books. Would you like to come see my house?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. This felt different. She wasn't promising me a perfect family or telling me how lucky I was. She was just offering me a chance. The drive to Maria's house was quiet but comfortable. She played soft music on the radio and pointed out things along the way. "That's where I buy groceries," she said, showing me a small market. "And that's the park where I walk sometimes in the evenings." Her house was small but beautiful. It had white walls and blue shutters, and the garden she had mentioned was full of colors I had never seen before. Red tomatoes hung heavy on their vines, and purple and yellow flowers bloomed everywhere. "This would be your room," Maria said, opening a door to a sunny bedroom. It had a single bed with a patchwork quilt, a small desk by the window, and empty bookshelves waiting to be filled. "You can decorate it however you like." That night, I lay in a real bed for the first time in months. Through the thin walls, I could hear Maria moving around the house, doing normal things like washing dishes and talking softly to Whiskers. It felt strange, but good to hear someone else living their life nearby. The first few weeks were not easy. I was used to being careful, to not making noise or asking for things. I would wake up early and make my bed perfectly, then sit quietly in the kitchen waiting for Maria to tell me what to do. "Emma," she said one morning, finding me sitting stiffly at the kitchen table. "This is your home too now. You don't have to wait for permission to get a glass of water or to turn on the television." But I was scared. I had learned that being good and quiet meant people might keep you longer. Being troublesome meant packing your backpack again. Maria seemed to understand this without me having to explain. She never pushed me to talk or be more outgoing. Instead, she just lived her life and invited me to be part of it. She would ask if I wanted to help her cook dinner, not because I had to, but because she thought I might enjoy it. She showed me how to water the plants in the garden and let me choose which flowers to pick for the kitchen table. Slowly, very slowly, I began to relax. The first time I called her mom was an accident. We were at the grocery store and I got separated from her in the cereal aisle. When I found her again, I was so relieved that I ran up and said, "Mom, I couldn't find you." Maria stopped pushing the cart and looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Is that what you like to call me?" she asked gently. I nodded, suddenly embarrassed. "Then I would be honored," she said, and she hugged me right there between the cornflakes and the oatmeal. That was the beginning of everything changing, not all at once, but little by little, day by day. Maria, who was now Mom, started coming to my school events. She helped me with homework at the kitchen table. She took me to the doctor when I got sick and stayed home from work to take care of me. But the most important thing she did was listen to me, really listen. When I finally told her about the nightmares I had about my birth mother's accident, she didn't try to fix them or make them go away. She just held me and let me cry. When I worried that she might decide she didn't want me anymore, she promised me that choosing to love someone wasn't something you did just once. It was something you did every day, and she chose me every day. The first time I felt truly part of a family was on my 9th birthday. Mom had planned a small party, just the two of us, but when I came home from school, there were 3 other people in our living room. My teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, was there, along with Sarah, a girl from my class who had become my friend, and Mr. Peterson from the library where Mom worked. "Every person needs people who care about them," Mom explained later. "I wanted you to see that you have that now." The cake was chocolate with pink frosting, and everyone sang happy birthday while I blew out 9 candles. But the best part was that Mom had made a photo album of the past 2 years. Pictures of me helping in the garden, reading on the front porch, playing with Whiskers, learning to ride the bicycle she had bought me. Pictures of a life I had never thought I could have. School became easier after that. I was no longer the sad, quiet girl who might disappear at any moment. I was Emma, who lived with her mom Maria in the house with a beautiful garden. I had friends and grades that mattered because someone cared about them and a future that felt possible. When I was 12, something happened that tested everything we had built together. A distant relative of my birth mother, an aunt I had never met, suddenly appeared and said she wanted custody of me. She claimed she had just learned about my situation and that I belonged with blood family. I was terrified. This woman was a complete stranger to me, but the law said that biological relatives had certain rights. There were meetings with lawyers and social workers, court dates and evaluations. For months, my future hung in the balance. Mom never said a bad word about my birth mother's sister. She never tried to make me choose sides or told me what I should want. But I could see the worry in her eyes, the way she held me a little tighter when she thought I wasn't paying attention. "What if she takes me away?" I asked Mom one night, crying into her shoulder. "Then I will fight for you with everything I have," she said. "But Emma, you need to know something. No matter what happens legally, no one can take away the love we share. You will always be my daughter, and I will always be your mom, even if we can't live together." The court case lasted 8 months. 8 months of uncertainty, of not knowing where I would live or who would raise me. My birth aunt seemed nice enough, but she was a stranger. She lived in another state and had children of her own. She talked about duty and family blood, but she didn't know that I loved to read mystery books, or that I was afraid of thunderstorms, or that I could make chocolate chip cookies from memory now. The day of the final hearing, I was allowed to speak to the judge. I was 13 by then, old enough to have my opinion count for something. I remember walking up to the big wooden podium in that courtroom, my hands shaking, looking up at the judge in her black robes. "Your Honor," I said, my voice small but clear. "I know that the woman who wants me is related to my birth mother by blood, but blood doesn't make a family. Love does. Choice does. Maria chose me when I was broken and scared and had nothing to offer. She taught me what it means to belong somewhere. She is my real mom, not because of biology, but because of love. I paused and looked back at Mom, who was crying quietly in the gallery. She didn't have to love me, but she did. Every day for 6 years, she has chosen to love me. That's what makes her my mother. The judge was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something I will never forget. Young lady, you have just given one of the most eloquent definitions of family I have ever heard in my courtroom. 3 weeks later, the judge ruled in our favor. Maria was granted permanent custody, and we began the process for her to adopt me legally. On the day the adoption was finalized, when I was 14, I officially became Emma Rodriguez. Not because I had to take her name, but because I wanted to. High school brought new challenges. I was a teenager, which meant I was sometimes angry and moody and difficult. I tested Mom's patience and her love the way all teenagers do. I slammed doors and rolled my eyes and said hurtful things when I was upset. But Mom never wavered. When I screamed that she wasn't my real mother during a fight about curfew, she waited until I calmed down and then said quietly, "You're right, I'm not your biological mother. But I am the mother who sat up with you when you had pneumonia. I am the mother who taught you to drive and who will cry when you graduate. I am the mother who chose you and who you chose back. That makes us more real than any biology ever could." I apologized through my tears, and she held me while I cried. These moments, the hard ones, somehow made our bond even stronger. Because real families fight sometimes, and they forgive, and they keep loving each other through it all. When I was 16, I got curious about my birth mother. Not because I didn't love Mom, but because I wanted to understand where I came from. Mom helped me research, even though I think it was hard for her. We found old photos and records, learned about the woman who had given me life but couldn't raise me. "She loved you," Mom said, looking at a picture of my birth mother holding me as a baby. "I can see it in her eyes. She would be so proud of who you've become." This generosity, this ability to honor the woman who came before her, showed me even more clearly what kind of person my mom was. She had never tried to erase my past or pretend she was the only mother I had ever had. She understood that I could love the memory of my birth mother while also loving her completely. College applications were stressful, but Mom was there for every step. She helped me write essays and drove me to campus visits. When I got nervous about leaving home, she reminded me that love doesn't have distance limits. "I raised you to fly," she said. "Now I get to watch you soar." I chose a university 3 hours away, far enough to be independent, but close enough to come home for dinner sometimes. The day Mom dropped me off at my dormitory, we both cried. But they were happy tears mixed with sad ones, the kind you cry when something wonderful and heartbreaking happens at the same time. College was everything I had hoped it would be. I studied literature and education, thinking I might want to become a teacher. I made friends and dated and learned about the world. But the best part was calling Mom every Sunday night, sharing my adventures and hearing about her week. During my junior year, I met David. He was kind and funny and studying to be an engineer. When I brought him home to meet Mom, she welcomed him like family from the first moment. She made his favorite dinner without being asked and showed him embarrassing pictures of me from high school. "She loves you," David said later. "I can see why you turned out so amazing." Mom was there when David proposed, crying happy tears and helping us plan our wedding. She walked me down the aisle because there was no one else I wanted by my side for that moment. In her speech at the reception, she said, "Emma came into my life as a scared little girl, and today she has become a confident, beautiful woman. I didn't give her life, but she gave me purpose. She didn't come from my body, but she grew in my heart." David and I moved to a city 2 hours away after we married. We built our own life together, but Mom remained the center of our family. She was the first person I called with good news, and the first person I turned to when I needed advice. When I got pregnant with our first child, Mom was more excited than anyone. She knitted blankets and bought tiny clothes and helped us set up the nursery. "This baby is so lucky," she said, rubbing my growing belly. They're going to have the most wonderful mother. I learned from the best, I told her. Our daughter, Sophia, was born on a Tuesday morning in March. Mom was in the waiting room, pacing and probably driving the nurses crazy with her questions. When we brought Sophia home from the hospital, Mom stayed for a week, cooking meals and doing laundry and holding the baby while I slept. Watching Mom with Sophia was magical. She sang the same lullabies she had sung to me, told the same silly stories, gave the same unconditional love. Sophia adored her grandmother from the very beginning, reaching for her with tiny hands and calming down instantly when Mom held her. She knows you, I said, watching them together. Babies can sense love, Mom replied. She knows she's safe. 2 years later, when Sophia's little brother Michael was born, the pattern repeated. Mom was there for everything, supporting us through sleepless nights and first steps and all the chaos that comes with two small children. But then, when Sophia was 5 and Michael was 3, Mom started getting tired more easily. She said it was just age, that she was in her 60s now and didn't have the energy she used to have. But something felt different. The diagnosis came on a Thursday afternoon in October. Pancreatic cancer, stage 3. The doctor used words like aggressive and treatment options and quality of life, but all I could hear was the sound of my world falling apart. Mom was calmer than I was. She held my hand in the doctor's office and asked practical questions about treatment and timelines. Later, in the parking lot, I sobbed against her shoulder while she comforted me. I'm not going anywhere without a fight, she promised. We still have time. The next 8 months were the hardest of our lives. Mom went through chemotherapy and radiation, losing her beautiful gray hair and getting thin and weak, but she never lost her spirit. On her good days, she still insisted on helping with the children, reading them stories in a voice that got quieter but never less loving. Sophia and Michael didn't understand why Grandma was sick, but they knew she needed extra hugs and gentleness. They would climb carefully into her lap and pat her face with their small hands, as if they could make her better with their touch. David was incredible during this time, taking care of the children when I needed to be with Mom, driving us to medical appointments, never complaining about the stress and the sadness that filled our lives. She's my mother too now, he said simply when I thanked him. In May, the doctor said there was nothing more they could do. Mom was dying and we needed to make her comfortable. We brought her home from the hospital and set up a bed in the living room so she could see the garden through the big window. Friends and neighbors came to visit, bringing flowers and food and memories. Mrs. Rodriguez, my old teacher, came and held Mom's hand. Mr. Peterson from the library brought her favorite books. Sarah, my childhood friend who was now a doctor herself, flew in from California just to spend an afternoon with us. You changed so many lives, I told Mom one evening as we sat together watching the sunset through the window. No, sweetheart, she said weakly. You changed mine. The day I met you was the day my real life began. On a quiet Tuesday morning in June, Mom passed away peacefully in her sleep. David and I were with her, holding her hands, telling her we loved her. Sophia and Michael were still asleep upstairs, and I was grateful they would remember their grandmother as the vibrant, loving woman she had been, not just as someone who was sick. The funeral was beautiful. The church was packed with people whose lives Mom had touched, teachers and librarians and neighbors and friends. I spoke about the woman who had chosen to love a broken little girl, who had taught me what family really meant, who had shown me that the strongest bonds are the ones we choose to make. After everyone left, David and I sat in Mom's garden with the children. Sophia picked flowers for her grandmother, and Michael played with Whiskers, who seemed to be looking for Mom everywhere. Will we still live in our house now that Grandma is gone? Sophia asked. Yes, sweetie, I said. But we'll also take care of Grandma's house and her garden. We'll make sure the flowers keep growing. Because that's what family does, David added. We take care of the things that were important to the people we love. It's been 3 years since Mom died. We kept her house and turned it into a place where the children can play and remember their grandmother. Sophia, who is 8 now, helps me tend the garden, and Michael, who is 6, loves to chase Whiskers around the yard. Sometimes people ask me about my real mother, not knowing the story. I understand their confusion. In a world that often focuses on biology and blood relations, it can be hard to explain that the woman who raised me wasn't related to me by genetics. But I always tell them the same thing. Maria was my real mother in every way that mattered. She didn't have to love me, but she chose to. She didn't have to sacrifice for me, but she did. She didn't have to call me daughter, but she made me hers through the power of unconditional love. Real families aren't always made in traditional ways. Sometimes they're made when a lonely woman and a scared little girl find each other and decide to build something beautiful together. Sometimes they're made through choice and commitment and the daily decision to keep loving someone even when it's hard. I think about mom every day. When Sophia asks difficult questions, I hear mom's patient voice in my mind. When Michael needs comfort after a bad dream, I sing the lullabies mom sang to me. When I face challenges in my marriage or my career, I remember the strength and grace mom showed in everything she did. Most of all, I remember what she taught me about love, that it's not something that just happens to you, but something you choose, that family isn't about blood, but about commitment. That the most powerful bond between two people is when they look at each other and say, I choose you, today and every day. She wasn't my biological mother, but she was my mom in every way that truly mattered. She chose me when I was unlovable, loved me when I was difficult, and believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. She gave me a home, a family, and most importantly, she gave me the knowledge that I was worthy of love. Now I carry that gift forward. I choose to love my husband every day. I choose to be the best mother I can be to my children. I choose to see the lonely, scared people in the world and remember that sometimes all they need is someone to choose them. That's mom's real legacy, not just the love she gave me, but the love she taught me to give others. She showed me that families are built one choice at a time, one day at a time, one act of love at a time. And somewhere, I know she's watching over our beautiful, chosen family, proud of the love that continues to grow from the seeds she planted in a 7-year-old girl's heart all those years ago. She wasn't my real mother by birth, but she was my real mother by choice. And that made all the difference in the world.